Alrighty then. Hello again. All right. We are in session 10, chapter 2, called The Separation and the Atonement, and section 2, the Atonement as Defense. We'll speak more about the word defense a little later on. So Jesus says, "You can do anything I ask. I have asked you to perform miracles, and have made it clear that miracles are natural, corrective, healing, and universal. There is nothing they cannot do, but they cannot be performed in the spirit of doubt or fear. When you are afraid of anything, you are acknowledging its power to hurt you. Remember that. Remember that where your heart is, there is your treasure also. You believe in what you value. If you are afraid, you are valuing wrongly. Your understanding will then inevitably value wrongly. And by endowing all thoughts with equal power will inevitably destroy peace. That is why the Bible speaks of the peace of God, which passeth understanding. This peace is totally incapable of being shaken by errors of any kind. It denies the ability of anything not of God to affect you. This is the proper use of denial. It is not used to hide anything, but to correct error. It brings all errors into the light. And since error and darkness are the same, it corrects error automatically." All right. So Jesus says, I'm asking you to perform miracles. All right. And he's not talking about anything in form. Right? He's not asking you to, walk on water or, change water to wine or, raise the dead and, heal all kinds of diseases. And right? He's not talking about anything in form. He says, you can do anything I ask. What he's asking you to do is to look at your ego thought system and then ask for the correction. Decide against it. Right? That is the miracle, the change in perception. Right? And the miracle, that change of perception, is corrective. It heals the split mind in the moment. Right? And it's universal, because all minds are joined. There's one mind. We perceive it as, billions of minds running around. All right? Acting like a nut. All right. When you are afraid of anything, you are acknowledging its power to hurt you. All right? So when you're afraid of anything, you're in that ego thought system. Right? Don't beat yourself up for that. That's where we find ourselves. Okay? This is what Jesus is here to help us walk out of that. All right? To change that way of thinking. All right? So he says, you're acknowledging its power to hurt you. Then he says, remember that where your heart is, there is your treasure also. So if my heart is in the ego thought system, I'm treasuring that whole thought system. I'm treasuring the idea of being an individual, being apart from, I don't even know I'm apart from the oneness, but I'm having a good time here in the ego, so I think. All right? I'm treasuring it. And he says, you believe in what you value. So if you value the ego thought system, you believe in it. Makes sense. All right? If you are afraid, if you're afraid of anything, even if it's just free-floating anxiety, right? It's not specific. If you're afraid, you are valuing wrongly. You're valuing the wrong thing. In other words, you're valuing the ego, and it's the wrong thing. All right? So if you're afraid of anything, you're valuing wrongly. Your understanding will then inevitably value wrongly. So your understanding goes along with it, you know. So that's wrong too. And by endowing all thoughts with equal power, we inevitably destroy peace. And this is just a quick way of Jesus slipping in there, once again, the idea that the mind is a very powerful thing. We're not really, we're nowhere near aware of how powerful the mind is. Okay? And I'm not talking about the brain, I'm talking about the mind. Right? He says all the thoughts have equal power. Right? Even the wrong ones. Right? So the wrong ones will destroy peace. The wrong thought that says, oh, I'm separated from God, bingo, peace is destroyed. All right? That is why the Bible speaks of the peace of God which passeth understanding. All right? So the peace of God is beyond our understanding. This peace is totally incapable of being shaken by errors of any kind. All right. And it denies the ability of anything, not of God, to affect you. So that state in heaven, you know, it just denies the ability of anything to hurt you. You are invulnerable. In reality, you know, where you truly are at home in God, right? In the mind of all that is, you are invulnerable. Right? And he says it denies the ability of anything not of God to affect you. This is the proper use of denial. Right? So Jesus will also talk about the improper use of denial, right? But the proper use of denial is to look at the ego thought system, right, and say, no, I don't want that. I deny it. Right? And the proper use of denial is not used to hide anything, but to correct it. Right? So, you know, everybody's familiar with that phrase, oh, he's in denial. You know? I walk around, I brush my hair, and I do whatever I have to do, and I say, wow, what a great head of hair. And somebody behind me, oh, you're in denial. You know? That use of denial is trying to hide something, all right? Trying to hide the fact that my hair is getting thinner. There it goes. All right, so, I mean, there's other things, but that just popped into my mind, right? But there's other ways of being in denial. You know, even the clever statement that I think arises from 12-step programs is that denial is not a river in Egypt. Because a lot of people are in denial, right? They're trying to hide something. He says that's the improper use of denial. Right? He says the way we want to use denial is to correct the error. I don't want the error. All right? I see it and I don't want it. I'm denying it. All right? And so I want the correction. Right? This is the proper use of denial. It's not used to hide anything but to correct error. It brings all error into the light. And since error and darkness are the same, it corrects error automatically. Right? And this is one thing throughout the pages of this book. Jesus is going to be exhorting us, asking us, telling us, you'll feel better if you don't hide anything from me. Bring it all to the light. He's not going to judge it. He's going to shine the light on it so we could see the truth of whatever it is. Even if you think you did something so ghastly, so vile, so repugnant. You're not going to tell anybody about it, So don't. But that's one of the things Jesus doesn't want us to hide. He says, bring it to me. Let me shine light on it. Right? And you'll come to see it differently. Right? It corrects errors automatically. Right? Paragraph 2, true denial is a powerful protective device. You can and should deny any belief that error can hurt you. This kind of denial is not a concealment, but a correction. He repeats, your right mind depends on it. Denial of error is the strong defense of truth. But denial of truth results in miscorrection, the projections of the ego. In the service of the right mind, the denial of error frees the mind and reestablishes the freedom of the will. When the will is really free, it cannot miscreate because it recognizes only truth. All right? So, he says, true denial is a protective device. All right? He says, you can and you should deny any belief that error can hurt you. Right? So that belief that, I did something wrong, I chose to be separate from God. He goes, just say no to that. All right? And that's what this book is dedicated to, showing us how that thought pops up in different forms. And we get chances over and over again throughout the day, every minute and every moment that the minute holds, we get the opportunity to deny the original error, right? To deny anything that says, now I can be hurt. And the first thing we thought of is, I can be hurt by God now because now he's going to get me, right? I broke up the oneness. He's looking for me now. When he finds me, I'm going to say, it ain't me, it's you. That's the process of the ego. All right. So, you should deny any belief that error can hurt you. This kind of denial, it's not a concealment, but a correction. Your right mind depends on it. And we use that in the Course, the idea of the right mind. Right? The wrong mind is where the ego thought system abides. Right? The right mind is where the memory of who you really are abides, otherwise known as the Holy Spirit and Jesus. Right? Jesus is the manifestation of the Holy Spirit, he'll say in the book here. And the Holy Spirit is just our way in the Course of saying, among other things, it's the memory of who you really are. It's the memory of your original condition. Right? And we brought it with us into the dream, right? It's just that this ego thought system, this dreamy existence that we've chosen, has so many distractions, right, that we block our awareness of the memory of who we really are. Right? So when we talk about the right mind, that's where the memory of all that is residing and waiting for us to just approach it. All right? And so, denial of error is a strong defense of truth. This is paragraph 2, sentence 5. Denial of error is a strong defense of truth. But denial of truth results in miscreation, the projections of the ego. All right? Saying same things, different words. All right? Let's take the sentence from the back first. All right? The denial of truth results in miscreations. The denial of truth. The truth is, I, as one son of God, with all my brothers and sisters who are a part of that one Son of God, exist in the mind of God. I never left. I have and I am everything. Right? That's the truth. He says the denial of that, right, brings on all the denial of that results in miscreation, because your mind is very powerful. Right? Now it miscreates. Right? It says, got to leave the mind, God's going to get me. And it creates this entire universe. Everything in the universe, right, it was the result of a thought. It's a miscreation. It's a projection of the ego. The ego says, gotta go now. God's coming to get me, and it projects out and forms all this, everything that makes up our experiences here. All right? And don't get upset about it. It's very interesting. Just observe it. That's the way back. It's just observe it. All right? As Dr. Wapnick would always say to me, don't take it too seriously. And one day I was signing up for a class in Roscoe, New York, when they had the foundation there. And he sees me coming and he goes, Kevin, my favorite massage therapist. He goes, still taking things too seriously? And all I could do was say, yeah, of course. What else do I do, So we both had a little laugh over that. But that's the idea. The idea is to be an observer, not a judgment maker. Don't make judgments about yourself. Oh, look what I believe. I believe I'm here. Well, we do. To deny that is the improper use of denial. To deny that is to hide the fact that I do believe I'm here. No, I'm just a body. I'm just the spirit. I'm free. I'm still as God created me. All right. And that's the improper use of denial. Oh, I have a headache. I'll just, I'll think about, Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and I'll ask him, help me see this headache differently. When it might be a good idea to take an aspirin. Unless you're that far along the path that you could just say, oh, let me transcend this, But I have a feeling I'm digressing here. Okay. So, in the service of the right mind, the denial of error frees the mind and reestablishes the freedom of will. It's another way of saying it reconnects you with who you really are. The denial of error. Okay. In the service of the right mind, the denial of error. No, I don't want the ego thought. I don't want the ego reaction. I'm tired of it. I don't want the chaos. I don't want the conflict. I want peace of mind. All right? That's a denial of the error in the service of the right mind. All right? And it frees the mind. It frees the mind. And it reestablishes the freedom of will, which means it reestablishes my connection to all that is, my connection to my creations, which are continuing, no matter where I think I am, no matter what disguise I'm in. All right. So when the will is really free, it cannot miscreate. So when the will is really free, think of it this way, it's connected to the original state. It can't miscreate. It's got no reason to do that. It's just so happy extending the creations, the love, the abundance, the all that is. So it's free to do that again. All right? You can defend truth as well as error in paragraph 3. The means are easier to understand after the value of the goal is firmly established. It is a question of what is it for? Everyone defends his treasure and will do so automatically. The real questions are, what do you treasure and how much do you treasure it? Once you have learned to consider these questions and to bring them into all your actions, you will have little difficulty in clarifying the means. The means are available whenever you ask. You can, however, save time if you do not protract this step unduly. The correct focus will shorten it immeasurably. Right? In another place, Jesus puts it more succinctly and easier to follow when he says, why wait for heaven? Why wait? He says, you could delay, but why wait? You know? Another place he says, there are many roads, and on some you travel gaily for a while. Perhaps you'd like to try them all. All right? That's how sweet and gentle the Course gets, until it starts, describing the horrors of the ego. But Jesus is always sweet and gentle. He says, okay, you want to try them all? I'm just waiting for you. All right? Another beautiful thing that comes from the Course is Jesus says, if you want to be like me, I'll help you. If not, I'll wait for you to change your mind. I love that line. I always did. Okay. So he says, you can defend the truth and you can defend error. Okay. He says, a good question to ask yourself in any situation, any time you want to take action, anytime you want to say something, you want to do something, just quickly ask yourself, what is it for? What is it for? All right, and it's either for the advancement of conflict, right, turmoil, chaos. It's either to add to that or to get into the fray, or what is it for? Oh, it's for finding peace. It's a vote for unity. All right, I want to find peace. So what are your, do you think you should say that? What is it for? Do you think you should do that? What is it for? Is it going to promote peace or is it going to promote conflict? All right? And you could value either one. You could defend yourself, say, hey, I had to do that. They did it to me. Can't let them do that. Can't let them get away with that. All right. And believe me, the Course never sets down specific rules of behavior or anything. It just tells you, it gives you suggestions, like maybe you should ask, what is it for? Will it promote chaos and conflict? Or will it promote peace? You decide. You make the call, as they say. All right. And once you have learned to consider these questions and to bring them all into all your actions, you will have little difficulty in clarifying the means. The means are available whenever you ask. All right. So whenever I ask, help me to see this peacefully. I want to decide for peace. Believe me, the means will appear. The means will arise in your awareness. If you need to say something, you'll get a word. If you need to do something, you'll be guided to do it. Nobody's saying you're going to hear the same inner dictation that Helen heard, but it'll just pop up as, oh, this is a clear thing. This is what I should do. And it will be the means to peace. All right? Okay. And remember, he says you could save time by doing this. Don't delay. Why wait for heaven? So paragraph 4. The atonement is the only defense that can not be used destructively, because it is not a device you made. The atonement principle was in effect long before the atonement began. The principle was love, and the atonement was an act of love. Acts were not necessary before the separation because belief in space and time did not exist. It was only after the separation that the atonement and the conditions necessary for its fulfillment were planned. Then a defense so splendid was needed that it could not be misused, although it could be refused. Refusal could not, however, turn it into a weapon of attack, which is the inherent characteristic of other defenses. The atonement thus becomes the only defense that is not a two-edged sword. It can only heal. All right? It's a wonderful paragraph, not only to show the love and I don't know, it's indescribable condition of the oneness, right? But it also, on this level, on this earthly level, it's a tribute to Helen's logic, right? Helen's logic comes through in a lot of places, believe me. But this is one, as far as I'm concerned, all right? When he says the atonement principle was in effect long before the atonement began, because the atonement was love. Love is the answer to everything. Love was the only thing there was. So the atonement principle was always there, right? And in our condition, the atonement principle, the correction, as I like to call it, and Jesus too. I'll steal that word from him. He's all right with that. But the correction is love. When you come down to it, love is the answer. It'll take a specific form because we believe we're specific, and until we progress up the ladder to where we realize, oh, I get it, right? Love is the answer to everything, and love will be the answer up there too, up the end of the ladder, all right? But the child is running with scissors. How do I see that correctly? All right? I mean, what are my actions? What is it for? Do you want chaos and conflict? Then, grab the kid, shake him, yell at him. You scared me. All right? Or, how can I see this peacefully? Come here, little Susie. Let me see that. Let me see that. Take this scissors out of the hand. And pat him on the head, send him off in another direction. All right? That is the loving thing to do. That's the atonement principle, corrected the error. All right, I'm afraid. And I say, how can I see this peacefully? The answer comes and I get guided to just walk up and say, all right, let me see that, and take the scissors. My sister Teresa is very good at that. She'll just take whatever it is out of the baby's hand and give him something else that's not harmful. Very good at it, very quick, almost like a magician. All right? All my sisters are very good. I have 4 of them. Okay? I have 4 brothers too. I have to mention them, right? It's equality. Okay. So the answer is always love. And the atonement principle was in effect long before it was even necessary. All right, love was always there until, the one Son of God said, no, maybe I could have something else beside that. And then the mind split into these 2 things. Well, do I want love or do I want my individuality? And boom, I chose my individuality. And here's another idea that I have neglected to mention, the idea of dissociation. I believe, all therapists will tell you that what you dissociate from, you forget. All right? And that's what the one Son of God did when he decided, oh, I'm going to be an individual. He dissociated from his original state, right? And therefore forgot. Projected into the world and forgot where he exists, what he's all about, and what she, believe me, I'm not trying to exclude women. You have to have women, really. Men are too crazy. All right? But the atonement principle was well in effect in, for lack of a better term, heaven, the original existence. All right? But we have to call on it to correct our error. All right? And love cannot be used destructively. Right? If it's being used destructively, it's not love. All right? Later on, Jesus will talk about that. He says, call it what you want, but it's not love. All right? If it's being used destructively to hurt someone. So, the principle was love, and the atonement was an act of love. And then he goes on and he says, look, acts weren't even necessary before the separation. There was nothing, you didn't have to do anything. You just were everything. You are everything. There's nothing to be done. Right? Acts were not necessary before the separation because belief in space and time did not exist. All right? That's these are the things that just, I like to dwell on them because they're like mind-blowing, So before the separation, belief in space and time didn't exist. All right? That rolled out along with, being an individual. All right? Space and time. All right? It was only after the separation that the atonement and the conditions necessary for its fulfillment were planned, as if they were planned. But we have to use words. All right? Then a defense so splendid was needed that it could not be misused, although it could be refused. All right? So the correction, help me to see this correctly. The correction is so splendid, right? It's so splendid that it can't be misused. It's love, right? And there's that song, love is a many splendid thing, all right? But it's love. It can't be misused, although it can be refused. And a lot of us are afraid of that condition of love. Because on some deep level, the ego, I've identified with the ego, I've identified with this form. The ego is whispering in my ear, if you identify with love, if you choose love, you're just going to disappear. You're going to just go poof. You're going to lose everything that you treasure. You're going to lose everything that you hold dear. Right? And that's what the ego counsels us. And you can see it even throughout mythology. The idea of don't look back. Don't look back. You'll turn to stone. Don't look back. You'll lose the love of your life. Don't look back. All kinds of things. And it comes through in our myths and our legends and all that. So he says it can be refused. And, you practice this course and you'll see at some point the choice point will become obvious. Do I want the ego solution, or do I want to ask Jesus, what's peace look like? What does peace look like in this situation? And there's your choice point. And choose whichever one you want. If you refuse the correction, you just go off into your ego solution, and then you can take stock later on. How did that work out? How did that work out for you? Was peace in your awareness, as we say? All right. But he says you can refuse it, but the refusal cannot turn into an attack. You cannot use love for an attack, even if you refuse love. Right? You can only use the ego's nutty weapons. Right? But you can't use that true love. Right? You can't use that. Right? So, the atonement thus becomes the only defense that is not a two-edged sword. It can only heal. So the correction of error can only heal. Right? And the ultimate healing, I mean, it heals all these little things along the way, all our imagined problems and all our imagined situations. Right? All our situations. Don't let me say that, you know, people are having a hard time. It's real to them. And it is. I'm not saying, hey, it's all in your imagination. Right? That would be cruel. It's cruel to do that to people. But what I'm saying is, all along we ask Jesus for help. How do I see this correctly? How do I see this through the eyes of love? And use whatever word you want. Peace, kindness. How do I see it that way? Right? And what gets healed, right, is that mind that was split into the right mind and the wrong mind, the ego mind. Once I thought, maybe I can have more than love. The mind split. Now we want to heal it. Right? I want to come back to that awareness that there is only love. Right? And that's what we're doing, where every situation becomes a classroom in which I can make the choice. All right? What is it for? What is this classroom for? Is it for love, or is it for chaos and conflict? All right. Paragraph 5, page 20. The atonement was built into the space-time belief to set a limit on the need for the belief itself, ultimately to make learning complete. The atonement is the final lesson. Learning itself, like the classrooms in which it occurs, is temporary. The ability to learn has no value when change is no longer necessary. The eternally creative have nothing to learn. You can learn to improve your perceptions and can become a better and better learner. This will bring you into closer and closer accord with the sonship. But the sonship itself is a perfect creation, and perfection is not a matter of degree. Only while there is a belief in differences is learning meaningful. All right. And that's one of the first things the ego does, is I perceive an other, and now I have to judge that other. That other is different, and I have to judge it. And most likely I have to defend myself against it because it's looking to get something from me. And it goes on and on. Right? But he says the atonement, the correction of the belief in separation, he says was built into the space-time belief. Right? We took it with us into this belief of space and time. Right? And it does. It sets a limit on the need for the belief in space and time. Right? That's what Jesus says, I'll use everything that the ego made to help you escape from the ego. Right? Escape from that thought. So we'll use time. You believe you're in time and space, so we're going to use time and space to help you get out. To help you wake up. We'll use it. So, but it eventually comes to an end, right? Because the atonement, the big final correction, is the final lesson. the correction that says you never left the mind that thought of you, right? You never left the mind that extended, and there you were, right? You never left the spaciousness of all that is, right? And when we come to that awareness, that's the final lesson. That's the big one, right? Up until then, we get all these little encouragements, right, where we become less and less fearful, less and less grumpy, right? And less whatever, nasty, cruel, right? And we get a little happier with each understanding until the moment comes when I finally get it. And I say, oh, that's it. I realize I don't need this ego thought system, right? Can you help me to see everything truly? And then the atonement becomes big time. It's the final lesson, right? And he says, look, everything else is a classroom, and classrooms are temporary, right? Well, so some of us would have liked to, but you can't stay in college forever. Can't stay in high school forever. Can't stay in kindergarten, all right? So I know some people would like to, so they could just play and have snacks. All right, but those things, they move on. They're only temporary. They're just temporary. All right. And you just tell you over and over again, even your teachers are temporary. All right, they bring you along. Each classroom brings you along to the next. And we become, as we'll talk about later in the course, happy learners. Because we know, as we wake in the morning, we say, okay, this is great. I'm going to have more classrooms to go to today. I'm going to learn that I am not separated from my source. I'm going to learn that I'm not separated from love. What a great day. All right, let's go. Let's go to class. All right? So, and he says all these classrooms, all these little progressions that we're making are going to bring you closer and closer to the sonship, closer and closer to the awareness of what the sonship is, right? And the sonship is a perfect creation, right? It's just a perfect creation. And that's where we reside. In paragraph 6, evolution is a process in which you seem to proceed from one degree to the next. You correct your previous missteps by stepping forward. Right? This process is actually incomprehensible in temporal terms because you return as you go forward. The atonement is a device by which you can free yourself from the past as you go ahead. It undoes your past errors, thus making it unnecessary for you to keep retracing your steps without advancing to your return. In this sense, the atonement saves time, but like the miracle it serves, it does not abolish it. As long as there is need for atonement, there is need for time. But the atonement, as a completed plan, has unique relationship to time. Until the atonement is complete, its various phases will proceed in time. But the whole atonement stands at time's end. At that point, the bridge of return has been built. All right? Okay. All right. And he's saying you correct your previous mistakes. This is what we're saying. You move along. You move along. And even if like a memory of something you think you were guilty of, all right, or some resentment you have from, who knows, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. If that comes up in your mind, all right, in that moment, I can ask, help me to see this correctly. What I really want is peace. Help me to see this through the eyes of peace. I want the correction. I want the atonement. All right. In that way, and then in my sincerity, the answer arises. And there's no need for me to go back anymore and say, why did they do that? Why did I do this? What happened then? He says, you don't have to retrace your steps. Right? In the moment, everything can be healed. All right? So, in this sense, the atonement saves time. We don't have to keep rehashing things. All right? We can just move to where we're headed, which is reuniting with our true selves. All right? So, this is the last paragraph, paragraph 7. The atonement is a total commitment. You may still think that this is associated with loss, a mistake all the separated sons of God make in one way or another. It is hard to believe a defense that cannot attack is the best defense. This is what is meant by the meek shall inherit the earth. They will literally take it over because of their strength. A two-way defense is inherently weak, precisely because it has two edges and can be turned against you unexpectedly. The possibility cannot be controlled except by miracles. The miracle turns the defense of atonement to your real protection. And as you become more and more secure, you assume your natural talent of protecting others, knowing yourself as both brother and a son. That's so nice. All right? But he says, like everybody else in the beginning, you may think that this is associated with loss. Like I say, the ego will tell you, you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your family, you're going to lose your friends, you're going to lose yourself, you're going to die. You're just going to disappear and become nothing, a nebbish. You become nothing. Right? So we associate the love, the atonement, the correction, we associate that with loss. All right? And he says that's a mistake that all the separated sons make in one way or another. All right? He says everybody does the same thing. Everybody thinks that way. All right? Because it's hard to believe that a defense that cannot attack is the best defense. Right? And it is. People will argue. I'll say, well, my only, in this moment, in this case, my only suggestion right now is to tell you to ask Jesus how to see this correctly. How to see this correctly. Right? And then the mind comes back, yeah, but he's going to get away with it. She's going to get away with it. She always does that. Right? He can't talk to me like that. He can't treat me like that. Right? Because automatically, if we're talking about contacting love, contacting peace of mind, the ego makes you think that you're just going to become a doormat. Right? So he says it's hard for the separated sons to think that a defense that cannot attack is the best defense. Right? Right? But he says, but this is what I'm telling you. This is what I meant by, I said, the meek will inherit the earth. Right? Because if you're in touch with that true correction, your invulnerability arises in your mind. I mean, if you need to physically remove yourself from a situation, you do. But you're not pointing back in accusations, you're not attacking. Right? leaving with anger or resentment or hatred or revenge. If you need to leave, you leave. All right. So he says, this is what I meant by the meek shall inherit the earth. And he says, they will literally take it over because of their strength. All right? Then the strength, you'll see the strength is you, because you'll understand, why is this person attacking me? Why is this person being like a nut? Why are they saying such vile and cruel things? Why, why did this person steal my money? Why did all that stuff. You'll understand it, and you'll be peaceful. You will be peaceful. I know for a fact it was Eckhart Tolle that was talking about Krishnamurti, and somebody asked Krishnamurti, "What's your secret?" He was like, people were coming to him for spiritual advice, and he was a very spiritual man. Just didn't want anything to do with organizations or religions or anything like that. Just wanted to be peaceful. And I believe it was Krishnamurti. Anyway, like I always say, if somebody knows better, please message me, tell me. So he said, "What's your secret?" He said, "My secret is I'm okay with whatever happens. I'm okay with whatever happens." All right? In other words, he was in such a state of peace that whatever was going on around him was not bothering him, was not threatening him. He wasn't afraid, wasn't threatened. He rather understood, and he was okay with whatever was going on. All right? And so a two-way defense is inherently weak, right? Because it has two edges and can be turned against you very unexpectedly. Right? I mean, in my own personal experience, if I enter an argument, especially a verbal argument, I know I'm going to lose because my defense, my wit, my quick wit, my biting sarcasm, all right, all of a sudden it's going to get turned against me. And believe me, I know from experience. All right, this is why in that classroom I can say, well, wait a second. What is it for? All right, I want the peaceful path. All right, and this way you avoid being a hooligan. All right. The miracle turns the defense of atonement to your real protection. All right. Once that awareness of love being your existence, once the awareness of oh yes, everything is yours. All right. That's your real protection. All right. Remember in the beginning, very beginning of the course, right? In the preface, in the introduction. It says, nothing real can be threatened. So once we're in touch with that thought, even if it's momentarily, in that moment, you realize, oh, I'm not threatened. I don't feel threatened in this moment. And eventually we will all come to the realization that that's where we exist. Because we're real in that moment. We're in reality. Nothing real can be threatened. All right. And then Jesus adds, nothing unreal exists. All right. And in that little cone, so to speak, it ends with, herein lies the peace of God. All right. So we through the use of the atonement, the correction of error, help me to see correctly, I get to that final realization that I am at home in God. I'm in reality, and nothing real can be threatened. All right? And nothing unreal exists. All right? And when we come into those moments, while we're still here in space and time, right? And as he says, as you become more secure in that knowledge, or in that awareness, let's say, he says, you assume your natural talent. And what is your natural talent? Right? It's protecting others. It's reminding others that you're not separated from God either. Right? We're not talking about raising armies. We protect others by bringing the message. You are not separated from love. All right? You are not outside of heaven. All right? And that's your natural talent. All right? And you will be protecting others, knowing yourself as both a brother and a son. All right? You will be brother to everyone and a son of God. I think we can end on those thoughts. All right? All right, everybody. Have some peaceful thoughts.